Totals for week 13. Total expenses were $1,640 at 56 cents per mile. Total revenue was $4,550 at $1.56 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $2,909 at $1 per mile. Welcome back to Trucking the Seven Seas. This is episode number 92, and in this episode, we're going to go over week 12 and 13 of running my own authority. For this episode, we're going to cover 2 weeks because I fell behind last week and I ended up not getting the video done, so we're just going to cover 2 weeks this week. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver working for night transportation, moved on to a lease operator working for night transportation, then an owner operator working for Landstar, and now we are an owner-operator running our own authority. I show all of the loads I take, what the revenue is, what the expenses are, and I compile all this information that I put into a spreadsheet that I share with you at the end of every video. So if this is a topic that interests you, follow the channel. But last episode, we left off in Chatsworth, Georgia. So we dropped a load in Chatsworth, Georgia, and I was looking to run primarily the South and Texas and that region there. Right now, it's produce season going on in basically the South, so specifically Georgia, but also South Carolina, North Carolina, Louisiana, and even Florida and places like that are doing pretty well right now. So I was looking to run there. Texas is also quite good. So I was basically looking to run the South/Texas. And if you look at a heat map, the DAT provides a heat map that you can look up. So I guess I'll just put it like kind of right over here. And you can pretty much see exactly where the good regions are. Right now, it's just, it's the South and Texas, so that's good. Phoenix and Las Vegas are also decent as well. Southern California is still pretty good. So I've been running Southern California ever since the tariffs began, and I haven't had any issues, specifically Los Angeles. So it still seems to be okay there, so I'd be fine going there as well. But I was primarily looking to run between basically the South to Texas. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right here. This one's going from Chatsworth, Georgia to College Station, Texas. So that's pretty decent. College Station, Texas is just a little ways north of Houston, and Houston is probably the best market in Texas. So I thought this one was fine. Paid pretty decently, $1.85 per mile, but Houston is quite a good market, so I don't have any problems taking this load. And yeah, that's what we ended up doing. So we're going to College Station, Texas. So let's go. All right, so we ended up dropping that load in College Station, Texas, and that load was actually the load where my studs broke off on my trailer. So if you remember last week, I talked about how, I had all those issues with my studs breaking off and very serious. It took me like 48 hours to get it fixed. So that was actually on that load, but because of that load did not make last week's paycheck, so I pretty much did that one last week, but that was the load where my studs actually broke off. But it's on this week's paycheck because that's when I actually ended up delivering it. So delivered that one, got it all worked out, got my studs fixed, got everything fixed on that one. So that was good. So delivered that load and then had to wait until Monday, basically to grab another one. So I did sort of an unscheduled reset that I didn't necessarily need, but what am I going to do? So dropped that load, and then I was once again looking to primarily run the South. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this one's going from Houston, Texas to LeCompte, Louisiana. Not sure how to say it exactly, but going to Louisiana is also fine. That's a decent market. Somewhat short, paid very well in terms of rate per mile. So $3.88 per mile. That's good. It is short run, so it's going to pay pretty good. But I was fine with that. And it was a Monday, so I could take some short loads here and there. Just trying to get about $1,000 revenue per day, and this one definitely does that. So yeah, grab this one, and now we're headed to LeCompte, Louisiana. So let's go. All right, so I went ahead and dropped that load in LeCompte, Louisiana, and then I was looking for another load, either going back to Texas or Georgia or something like that. I didn't particularly want to grab a longer load because if I grabbed a long load, I would probably end up delivering it like Friday afternoon, and then I would have a hard time finding another load to take me through the weekend. So I was basically gonna run some medium to short loads for this week. That was basically my plan. Just try to get about $1,000 of revenue per day. So that's what I was going for. And I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this one's going from Forest Hill, Louisiana, to Norcross and Doraville, Georgia. So it's a two-stopper. So there's two unloads. Um, Pretty decent. Forest Hill was like literally 5 miles away from where I was, so this was a fine load to grab. I thought, because there was like no deadhead, and I was sort of in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana. Like I think Shreveport slash New Orleans were like maybe 100 miles away, something like that. So I wasn't necessarily in a fantastic place in Louisiana, but it was still okay. So, but the fact that I was able to get this one and it's going to basically Atlanta, I thought was totally fine. So that's what I ended up doing. So we grabbed this one, and now we're headed to basically Atlanta. So let's go. All right, so then after that Norcross slash Doraville drop, I was looking for another one. It was about Wednesday when I dropped that load, so it was Wednesday. So I wanted to grab another short one, just keeping it about $1,000 of revenue per day, something like that. Just running some local stuff this week. That's what I ended up doing. So I was looking around trying to find, anywhere between like 200 and 600 mile load that paid decently enough. So I was looking around and I found this load right over here. So this one's going from Pendergrass, Georgia to Conover, North Carolina, just kind of by Charlotte. So again, paid really well, $450 per mile, $900 of revenue. I think that's totally fine. About $1,000 per revenue per day is what you should go for, and that's what I've been trying to get. And this pretty much hits it. So $450 per mile, one pick, one drop, very simple. And that would lead me to North Carolina, which is again a pretty good market right now. So I was fine grabbing that. So we're gonna go ahead and go to Conover, North Carolina. So let's go. All right, so after I dropped that Conover, North Carolina load, that was actually the end of week 12. So it was like Friday by the time I dropped that thing, Thursday, Friday, something like that. So that was week 12. So now we're actually on week 13. And it was Thursday. I think it was Thursday or Friday. I can't remember exactly when I dropped that one. But at that point, I was looking to find a long weekend load. I think I dropped it Thursday afternoon. And then it's like, okay, I need to find something to get me through the weekend, which I was well positioned because I was in a really good market on the, East Coast, so then I could drive as far as I wanted west, so it works out really nicely actually. So I was looking for another one, and at this point I was fine, probably going to southern SoCal, Los Angeles, something like that. Anything along those lines would be fine, or Phoenix or Vegas, or I guess Texas would work as well. So I was looking for basically anything along those lines just to get me all the way through the weekend. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right here. So this one's going from Mount Airy, North Carolina to Burbank, California. So Mount Airy is about 100 miles away, not a big deal, and Burbank is Los Angeles. So again, if you drive into Los Angeles, it's still a fantastic market from what I've been seeing. So it's still good there. You're still getting out of there for a very good rate, even though the tariffs and the ports are all screwed up right now. So it's still very good rates coming out of there. So I was able to get this one for about $1.37 per mile, which sounds awful and it's not good. But again, you're going to Los Angeles, which I still think is the best market in the U.S. So whenever you go in there, you're going to take a crap rate going in. And when you come out of there, you're going to take a good rate coming out. I think I booked a load coming out of Los Angeles. Yeah, I booked a load coming out of Los Angeles going to Atlanta a couple weeks ago for like 2 something per mile. So it kind of works out, if you can book them for $2.10 a mile coming out, $1.40 going in. I think you're actually doing okay. It equates to about $1.70 per mile for 2,000-mile loads. Again, the market's bad right now, so I think this one's fine. And that's what I ended up booking. So we're going to Burbank, California now, which is Los Angeles. So let's do it. All right, so we dropped that load out in Burbank, California. So I was out in Burbank, California, fantastic market. And I was kind of hemming and hawing about whether I wanted to go play in the World Series of Poker a little bit. So I was thinking about it. and I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to do it or not. I ended up dropping that load on Tuesday. So I dropped that load on Tuesday, and I was looking for something to maybe go to Las Vegas or something like that, or even to Salt Lake or something along those lines while I kind of make the decision whether I wanted to go play in the World Series of Poker or not. For the new viewers, I do play some poker, kind of a mm, just a recreational player at this point. So I do like going to the World Series every now and then when I can get over there and play. So I was kind of thinking about it. So I dropped this one Tuesday, and I was like, all right, let's grab something and kind of think about it as I drive that way. You could probably see where this is already going. So I dropped the one in Burbank, and then I found this one, San Bernardino to St. George, Utah. St. George, Utah is about 100 miles north of Las Vegas. So I was like, all right, I'm going to grab that. Just think about whether I want to go take some time off and go play or not. So grab this one. Paid fine also, $3.64 per mile to go to basically the Las Vegas market. And Las Vegas is a decent market right now. It's doing just fine as well. So paid pretty good, and yeah, kind of gave me some time to think about it. So we're going to St. George, Utah, which is basically just a little ways north of Las Vegas. So let's go to St. George. All right, so I dropped that load out in St. George, Utah, and then just started immediately heading back to Las Vegas. St. George, Utah is not a good market at all, so I knew I wasn't going to find anything there, whether I wanted to go play in the series or not. So I just started automatically heading to Vegas because that's where the market is. And on the way, I was looking around for loads, and I did actually make a couple of offers on a couple of loads going to Dallas, Texas. So I made an offer. Forget what it was. I think I put out like $25.50, and the broker shot back 24, and I'm like, nah, I'll pass. I did that a couple times, and I was kind of thinking, oh, I'll just go take another load. I won't play. But then I ended up not finding anything that fancied me too much. So long story short, we're out in Vegas right now, and I'm taking a couple days off to go play in the World Series of Poker. I've already played in a couple of tournaments and lost, so that's sweet. So not going well so far, but hopefully I'll be here till Monday, and I'll probably leave Monday, and we'll see how it goes. But take some time off at this point, playing the World Series of Poker. So because of that, this St. George, Utah load is going to be the last load for this episode. So we're going to go ahead and get into the spreadsheet right now. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and cover week 12 and week 13 in this episode. So let's do it. For week 12, we took 4 loads. In those 4 loads, we got 2,090 miles, paid a total of $5,050 at $2.42 per mile, and we also had a truck order not used in Houston. Fuel expenses, we fueled up 2 times. In those 2 times, we paid $545 at 26 cents per mile. Maintenance, we did have 1 maintenance expense, so we had a tire and hub replacement for $830 at 40 cents per mile. Other expenses, hotels, 88, tolls, 105, scales, 29, parking, 47, for a total of $271 at 13 cents per mile. Fixed costs, we did have our insurance premium come in at $2,023. We also had our trailer payment come in at $687 for a total of $2,711 at $1.30 per mile. All right, totals for week 12. Total expenses were $4,358 at $2.09 per mile. Total revenue was $5,050 at $2.42 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $691 at 33 cents per mile. All right, caveats for week 12. So a lot of short loads here. So just, carried out my plan of just kind of running short loads in and around the East Coast /South /Texas. So that's what I did here. And I thought it went pretty good. So $5,050 revenue for only 2,000 miles, $2.42 per mile. That was good. So not bad at all. It is more of a hassle to book these shorter loads. So these 200, 300 mile, even 600 mile loads are, they're kind of a hassle. You got to stop. You got to, the chance for excess detention or a layover or something going wrong is increased greatly when you do stuff like this. So it is worth noting, although this one went fairly smoothly. And yeah, that went well. I also did have a truck order not used. So I forgot to mention that when I was in Houston, I did try to book something from Houston to Tucson. Out in Houston, it paid really well, so that's why I grabbed it. But when I got there, the shipper said, no, this load is not ready, so I got a truck order not used. So that was it right there. Did forget to mention that, but yeah, I got a truck order not used while I was out there as well. So in the end, I thought this was just fine. Short runs, only 2,000 miles, and I still made 5,050 bucks, 242 per mile. That's good. Just running the south there. Atlanta is a very hot market, and I would say it's the best market in the U.S. right now as a region. So yeah, if you're out in the south right now, you're doing good. Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, it's all pretty good out there right now. So highly recommend trying to get out there if you can because it's pretty decent. So there's that. Fuel expenses, they were fairly low. Yeah, there's a lot. There's basically I fueled up at the end of last week, and then I probably started this week or ended this week empty. So this is a very low fuel bill, and I'm guessing that some of the fuel bill is on next week's paycheck as well. So that's not normal, and I'm guessing I just had some of the fuel bill post on next week. So that's a very low fuel bill, and it's because I probably started the week full and ended the week empty. So that's what's going on there. All right, and then maintenance expenses. So I blew another tire. Yeah, I blew another tire and bent another rim. So that was annoying. So when I was in Houston, basically I tried to make a right-hand turn on a very narrow street, and I hopped the curb, which I hop curbs all the time. Kind of got to do it every now and then. But this curb was exactly the wrong height and exactly at the wrong spot where my tire just skimmed it, and I was fully loaded. Because I was fully loaded, it just kind of caught the rim and basically it damaged the sidewall and bent the rim. So that was super frustrating, especially after last week. So if you scroll up, I did basically the exact same thing. I had to replace the rim on one of my other axles. So that was super frustrating. It wasn't like I was doing anything crazy. It's just I had to make the turn onto the freeway. It was just a tight turn coming off a city street. I was on a truck route and everything, but this, there was just a curb there that was exactly the wrong height and everything, and I just I hit it. It's not like I'm doing anything crazy out there. This wasn't like there, I was just turning onto the road that led to the freeway, and I just, I knew I was going to hit the curb. You hit curbs sometimes. It's just the way it is. But this one was just exactly the wrong height. You know how it's just the wrong height where it just barely clips the rim, and it also hurt the sidewall. So I guess if I had been paying more attention, maybe I could have seen it and avoided it. But that was frustrating. So that hurt a lot. 830 bucks just down the drain. My maintenance expenses are very high recently. It should all level out at the end of the year, but the last couple of weeks have just been really bad. Again, my fault. I could have avoided it if I had been paying close enough attention, but I made the turn, and it was a tight turn, and I clipped a curb, and then there goes 800 bucks. Whoops. All right, and then moving on to other expenses, just some small stuff here. When I was in Atlanta, so I dropped the load in, I think, where was it? In Doraville / Norcross out there. Dropped it about, I think it was like 3 p.m. or something like that. And I was like, all right, now I need to try to find a truck stop. And if you've never been to Atlanta, all of the truck stops are either on the west side of Atlanta or north of Atlanta. There's very few on the east side, and that's where I was. So I was looking around. I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to try to find a place to park this thing. And there was nothing in that region. So I'm like, all right, there's a Petro on the west side of Atlanta. But if you've never experienced Atlanta traffic, you'd know how bad it is. And I was looking at the Google Maps, and it was like a 2.5 hour drive to get there, and it was like 50 miles. And I was just like, man, I don't want to do that, And this was like a Wednesday or something like that. It wasn't like a weekend thing or anything. I was just like, man, I don't want to do that. So I was looking around, and I needed a shower because it was really hot, and I had been, I actually helped unload a little bit. I didn't get paid for it, but I was in a hurry, and there was like a construction site, and I was unloading planter pots. And I'm like, man, I need to get to the next stop. This is when I had the 2-stopper, one in Norcross and one in Doraville. And there was kind of a tight timeline, and I did not want to hold the load. So I just voluntarily went and helped unload. They were potter plants is what they were. So I got covered in like dirt. And I'm like, I need a shower. I just needed a shower. It was bad. So I'm like, okay, I need to park it and I need a shower. Long story short, the road ended up closing. The 285 in Atlanta, the main road that kind of goes around Atlanta, that ended up shutting down. And I was just like, you know what? There's a hotel right down the road that looks like it allows truck parking. So I called them up. I'm like, hey, can I park a semi in your lot? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. You can come on over. I'm like, all right, sweet. So that's what I did. I ended up doing that, which is fine. I mean, I would have had to drive like 50 miles excess anyway, which would have cost me, 80 cents per mile, whatever it is. So it wasn't too bad. So I just grabbed a cheap hotel, got a parking spot, and and a shower. And I think when I'm in Atlanta, I might make that kind of a new norm, just find a cheap hotel. That's what I did. So yeah, that's what the hotel was about. It's just the freeway closed down, and I was not having it that day. I just got a hotel for the night, and that's what that's about. All right, and then tolls. Yeah, I had tolls come in. They usually settle after like a week or two, so I actually don't remember what this is for. I'm guessing this is for when I was running in Dallas and I did the George Bush Turnpike or something like that. I don't remember exactly. I don't hesitate to use the tolls if the traffic is bad enough. I will avoid them, but in places like Dallas and Houston, the tolls can get pretty bad, so I do use them. So that's what that was about, I'm sure. All right, and then scales. Yeah, I scaled it a couple times. 29 bucks. There's that. Parking, I did pay for parking, I think in Houston. So when I was after the College Station drop, uh, I went I went ahead and deadheaded to Houston and just paid for parking out there. Um, yeah, so I think I paid for 2 nights or something like that. It was the weekend load. It was after all, like I bet my rent. No, it was after I busted my studs, and it was like a Saturday afternoon. And I'm like, all right, just give me a parking spot, you know. So I paid for parking when I was out there, and that's what that's about. So yeah, and that brought our total expenses to 271 bucks at 13 cents per mile. There's other expenses. Okay, and then some of the big daddy ones, my insurance premium and my trailer payment came in, and I'm starting to recognize these come in at the same week. I thought they would be split between 2 different weeks, but I'm starting to realize no, they come in usually at the exact same week. So that's a big bill there, 2,700 bucks. So that hurts obviously, and whenever both of those come in, it's going to be hard to have a good week, right? So that's that right there. So 2,700 bucks, $1.30 per mile. They come in on the same week, and now some of you guys were saying maybe I should just like show it, like, oh, it's about $400 per week or $500 per week in fixed costs. I'm not going to do that though. I like to show you guys, hey, sometimes you just have almost 3 grand worth of insurance and APU payments come in, and that's going to be a bad week for you. So that's how I like to show it, because this is actually how the cash flow went. I just had almost $3,000 of fixed costs come in on a single week. So that's what it actually looks like, and that's what I actually experienced. So that's what I'm gonna show you guys, and there you go. So that hurts right there, 2,700 bucks. Ouch. Okay, and then for week 12, obviously, yeah, not a great week. Really, it came down to this right here. I just had both my insurance and APU payment come in, and then also this right here, my blew another tire and bent another hub. So that's that. Not a great week, but given that this payment right here came in, if you delete that, it's actually a pretty good week. So, um, you know, there's that. So there's week 12. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to week 13. For week 13, we did 2 loads. In those 2 loads, we got 2,916 miles, paid a total of $4,550 at $1.56 per mile. Fuel expenses, we fueled up 5 times. In those 5 times, we paid $1,354 at 46 cents per mile, and there were no maintenance expenses this week. Other expenses, OTR factoring, 130, scales, 14, for a total of $144 at 5 cents per mile. Fixed costs, DAT load board, 99, truck stop load board, 42, for a total of $141 at 5 cents per mile. Totals for week 13, total expenses were $1,640 at 56 cents per mile. Total revenue was $4,550 at $1.56 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $2,909 at $1 per mile. Okay, so caveats for week 13. There's not really too many. I mean, it was a pretty standard week. 1 long load, then 1 short load up here in Vegas, up to St. George, which I then headed down to Vegas. So that, pretty standard stuff. $4,500 of revenue. Little short on the revenue. However, I did drop this St. George, Utah load on Thursday, and then Friday I didn't do anything. I just sort of gambled all of my money away here in Vegas. So that's what's going on there. So slightly short. Other than that, though, pretty decent. Basically $3,000 of mileage. My revenue my rate per mile is pretty low. That's because this load right here, I took one out to Los Angeles. So whenever you go out to Los Angeles, get a good load rate going in, bad rate going out. Might deadhead back to Los Angeles after Vegas. It's not necessarily a mistake to do this. It's about 200 miles to Los Angeles, and you can get a far better rate out of Los Angeles. Vegas is still good, but Los Angeles is the best. So I don't know. I might deadhead back to Los Angeles to get the best rate going out. But primarily, this is somewhat short on the rate per mile because I took a long load to Los Angeles. So that's what's going on there. Fuel expenses were pretty high this week. I mentioned last week, or on the last week's paycheck, it was only 25 cents per mile. This week it is 46 cents per mile. So obviously some of the fuel ups that were done this week were actually for last week's running. So that's what's happening there. If you take the 25 cents for last week and you add 46 cents, you get 30 or 70 cents per mile. And right now my average fuel expense is about 37 cents per mile. So it all aligned up. So this week was high, last week was low, and that's what's going on there. So fuel expenses pretty high this week, but they were low last week. So there you go. And then for maintenance expenses, I successfully did not pop a tire this week, so that's good. I did not have to blow a tire out or bend a rim or have a broken stud or something crazy go on this week, so that helped out a ton. If you don't blow a tire every week, your maintenance expenses go down. If you didn't know that, so that's good. That's good. I didn't blow a tire this week. All right, and then other expenses. So I did decide to go ahead and factor these two loads up here. So uh, just decided to factor them. I could use cash right now, so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to factor these two ones. So these will pretty much be the last two loads I decide to factor. I just like to keep a certain amount of money in my bank account at all times, and I was a little short, and I'm like, okay, so I decided to factor these loads. So these should be the last two loads that I ever factor. Again, nothing wrong with OTR factoring; they're pretty solid. But I just decided to stop factoring them because I just don't know. I don't really need to factor my loads anymore. My cash flow situation is pretty good. It's just that this week it was a little low. So I did decide to go ahead and factor these two loads right here. And yeah, so that's what that's about. So we factored the loads, and there you go. And then I had scales for $14, making total other expenses $144 at 5 cents per mile. So there's my other expenses. And then fixed costs, so DAT load board and the truck stop load board. So I also got truck stop load board this week as well. So I was just running with DAT information. I had their load board. They have pretty good information, but I decided to go ahead and subscribe to truck stop as well. I am working on getting some more working with some more brokers. So I am constantly applying to them. It just kind of takes some time. I hit the 3-month mark basically a couple weeks ago, and I've been just sort of applying to different ones, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to get all of these set up. So I am doing that, but some of them like to work with truck stop load board, so I got a truck stop load board as well. So that's what that's about. Yeah, brought our total fixed cost to $141 at 5 cents per mile, and there you go. All right, so then totals for week 13. Pretty good week, dollar per mile, 2,900 miles. There were very few fixed costs or other expenses to come in, so 56 cents per mile in expenses is not normal. It's usually around dollar per mile, 80 cents per mile, somewhere in that range. So this is a pretty low expense bill, so got that going on. But yeah, dollar per mile, 2,900 bucks. Not a bad week. Just it was mostly because I did not have many expenses come out. So there's week 13. All right, now we're going to go over totals since starting my own authority. So total expenses have been $50,673 at $1.53 per mile, and that is my cost per mile. Total revenue has been $58,866 at $1.78 per mile. That brings our total profit loss to $8,193 at 25 cents per mile, and all these loads are dry van. All right, so there's our totals since starting the program. So you might be looking at this and going, why are my expenses so high? Why is it $1.53 per mile? Well, if you go ahead and you scroll up to the very top of this spreadsheet, just gonna scroll all the way up, you will see my startup costs here. So startup costs were pretty expensive. I'm not going to go over them here. I made a video on that previously, so you can watch that video if you want a breakdown of all these. But needless to say, it cost me $18,000 to get my authority active. This was mostly due to insurance premiums, DMV fees, and a down payment on a trailer. So for theoretical purposes, I'm going to go ahead and delete my startup costs and scroll back down. And this will give us a better idea of what a typical week would look like. Now, obviously, the startup costs absolutely count, but this just gives us a better idea of what a typical week would look like. So let's go ahead and go over my totals without the startup costs. All right, totals without the startup costs. We have driven a total of 33,040 miles. Total expenses have been $32,416 without startup costs, which equals 98 cents per mile, and that is my cost per mile without startup costs. Total revenue has been $58,866 at $1.78 per mile, which brings our total profit loss to $26,450 at 80 cents per mile. Okay, so there's our totals without the startup costs, and this is not good. 80 cents per mile without startup costs is really bad. Now, I have been getting banged up Well, my truck has been getting banged up recently. The last 3 weeks, I think I've had somewhere around $5,000 of maintenance issues. So that has hurt us pretty badly. So that's really what's going on here. 80 cents per mile. I don't think it's going to stay like that. I think it's going to keep pushing forward in the coming weeks and months, and we're probably looking at. I think my total take home will be about $1 per mile if rates stay where they are right now. I don't think they're going to though. I think it's going to keep going up, but right now we're at 80 cents per mile, and I believe that will go up in the next month or two to around $1 per mile. Now I wanted to quickly take a moment to say that the rates they seem to be going up. So it's out in the south, and the south was doing really well out there. So good rate per mile coming in, just traveling like I was between Texas and the south. So that was really good, and also out here in Los Angeles, still fine. And I'm just seeing rates start to kind of creep upward a little bit. That is what I think I'm seeing out there. Now it's kind of hard to gauge at times, right? Maybe that was just a fluke week. Maybe it's kind of in your head, but some of the data seems to suggest that it's also getting a little bit better. So I'm starting to see rates go up a little bit, and I think in the coming weeks and months I will stop having maintenance issues, and I think rates are going to go up. It is turning into summer, so it's getting, it's a good time of the year. And it needs to be mentioned that on June 25th, they're going to start enforcing the no English proficiency. So if you're not proficient in English, you're going to get kicked off the road. And that's going to be, well, that's going to take a lot of drivers off the road, supply and demand, less trucks, higher rates. So I think in about a month or so, rates should start spiking pretty significantly, would be my guess. That's speculation. But as of right now, we're making 80 cents per mile, but we have had some serious maintenance costs in the last couple weeks. So, and this is also running the slow time of the month. So March, April are pretty slow. So I think things are going to start picking up, and I believe this will eventually start creeping up. But right now, a lot of maintenance issues are slowing us down, and that's basically the biggest issue I'm having right now. So I think that'll go up in the next few months. So, but that's where we're at right now. All right, so now we're going to go over averages and other information. So let's do it. Average weekly paycheck has been $2,012. Average weekly miles has been 2,514 miles. Total fuel costs have been $12,778 at 39 cents per mile, and we have fueled up 4,005 gallons for an average of $3.19 per gallon. Total maintenance costs have been $7,409 at 22 cents per mile. If we kept this up for a 52-week period, we make $104,000 and drive 130,000 miles. Total revenue has been $58,866 for an average of $4,479 per week. Total deadhead has been 2,188 miles at 6.62% of total mileage. Been employed 92 days or 13 weeks. Taken 7 days off, 85 days on duty, 36 total loads. Average load length is 918 miles. And if we had a theoretical $500 truck payment, we would make $19,879 at 60 cents per mile. All right, just going over some of the averages. Nothing huge stands out on the top row here. Our average price per gallon is $3.19. That's decent. I guess the big one is my maintenance costs are currently 22 cents per mile. That will normally fall between 10 and 15 cents per mile. When I was working at Landstar, it averaged out to 13 cents per mile. So it's about 9 cents per mile more than I would expect it to be at the end of the year. So that's what's killing us right now. And it's not just the cost, it's also the time off. So, I had when my studs broke, I basically lost like 3 days of driving. So that hurt a lot. So the costs are one aspect which is hurting us, but really I think the bigger aspect is probably just the time loss. So that's noteworthy here. My maintenance expenses and the maintenance days off are really costing me right now. And this is why this is so low right here, because of these maintenance expenses. So that's what's going on there. All right, and then scrolling down, revenue per week, still pretty low. Trying to bump that up. Yeah, that's pretty low. I got to work on that. Deadhead is good, 6%. Deadhead is good. That's pretty solid. So I'm only traveling about 6% of total mileage to pick up a load. So that's not bad. And then $500 a week truck payment. So if I had a $500 per week truck payment, I would have made $19,000 so far. So my truck is paid off. I'm just showing you guys what a $500 per week truck payment would net you if you have a truck payment. And so far, it'd be $19,000 at 60 cents per mile, which is company driver pay through and through. Now, I will keep stressing that my maintenance expenses have been really hurting me lately. So that's what's going on. I think it's still not a good time to become an owner operator, especially if you don't own your own truck. So I would hesitate. I would hesitate a lot, but that's what it is right now. So if you're thinking about entering the market right now and you have like roughly a $500 per week truck payment and you're running like I'm running, you would be making company driver pay. So just be advised of that. However, my maintenance expenses are quite high and the market is currently pretty bad. So that's what's going on there. Okay, yeah, guys, so there's week 12 and 13. This video ran a little long. I just fell behind and I just couldn't get week 12 done, so I had to combine these two weeks into one episode, which does happen from time to time. Gonna hit the road on Monday again, taking a couple weeks off. I don't expect next week will be very good because I took a couple of weeks off, or a couple of days off next week, so we'll see how it goes. But that is week 12 and 13. And yeah, if you're interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, you can find them in the About section down below. After you find them and open them, you could just hit File, Download, and then download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet, and then you're free to use them however you please. And if you need a factoring company, you might check out OTR Factoring. I am currently using them, and I use both their factoring service and their fuel card. Both are excellent. So if you want to check them out, there is a link in the About section down below. And please use that link because it does help me out a ton when you do so. I really appreciate it. But that'll do for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.